under its chairmanship, focusing on building resilience for innovation, for cooperation and sustainability. A new full form of that acronym. This at the BRICS Summit in Brazil. We'll tell you all about it. Stay tuned. MNS leader's son, Rahil Sheikh, creates ruckus on the roads in Mumbai. Drunk, half-naked, MNS leader's son abuses Maharashtra influencer on the road. The MNS, meanwhile, has distanced itself from the entire incident. The Hindi-Marathi row escalates, meanwhile, after BJP's Nishikant Dubey quips, "Come out of Maharashtra and you will be beaten up black and blue." Priyanka Chaturvedi slamming Nishikant Dubey of the BJP, questioning who made Nishikant Dubey the gatekeeper of Hindi. Tahawwur Rana's explosive revelations. He claims he was Pakistan Army's most trusted agent in the 2611 plot, revealing the ISI role, and says that he served Mumbai targets ahead of the attack. What's more, that he was in Mumbai when the 2611 attack was being carried out. We're cutting the headline short because we have big and breaking developments. In a dramatic move, you've got US President Donald Trump on Monday announcing a 25% tariff on goods from Japan and South Korea, effective from the 1st of August. We're all waiting as to what's going to happen between India and the United States when you're talking about trade ties between these two nations. 9th July deadline hanging, looming large. And you've got Trump making these announcements on his social media platform, posting letters addressed to the leaders of both these nations. The decision is expected to jolt the trade relations in the Indo-Pacific, Korea and Japan, as both Tokyo and Seoul are key United States allies in the region. With me on the broadcast, Karthik Malhotra, Executive Editor, News 9. Karthik. And of course, Ambassador Deepak Vora, who also joins us on the broadcast here. Karthik, help the viewers put these numbers into perspective as well. We're all waiting on what's going to happen on the India-US front, but what does this now mean? Slapping 25% tariffs, and he's also warned them again. With retaliatory tariffs will mean another additional 25% tariffs. The Donald Trump tango has begun, it seems.
Absolutely. So no surprises when it comes to Donald Trump, because he tends to live up to all the expectations that people have of him, Kabir. But yeah, just to simplify it here for our viewers, I think no real departure from what Donald Trump had proposed to do on April the 2nd. So his Liberation Day tariffs, for example, on multiple countries, dozens of them, the number hasn't really changed drastically for both Japan as well as South Korea. So if you remember, on the 26th, when tariffs were, on the 2nd of April, when tariffs were announced for the first time, when India had received a 26% tariff, South Korea and Japan were both in the similar vicinity. In fact, Japan was slightly lower at 24%. South Korea, on the other hand, continued to be at 25%. So, honestly speaking, Trump has put and given enough notice by putting that pause of 90 days to most countries to come to the table to negotiate as per the expectations of the Trump administration in the overall Make America Great Again proposition that Trump has been offering. But beyond that, I think Trump is running out of patience, and that seems fairly evident because he has gone ahead. It is a stern letter. He's not mincing his words. He's not known to be mincing his words in any case. And he's gone ahead and said that come 1st August, you are now slapped with a 25% tariff. And if you try to do what China tried to do initially by raising tariffs and by calling those reciprocal tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, etc., then it's simple. Another 25% has to be paid. Now, coming specifically to India, Kabir, I doubt India would be in the list of those 12 countries, given the fact that Indian negotiators have visited Washington multiple times. We've had Washington negotiators come to India multiple times. So there is definitely some action on the ground. Now, is that going to result in a trade deal, whether a mini trade deal, interim trade deal, whatever one calls it? Is it going to lead to something fruitful which will be fructified before the original pause deadline ends on July 9th? We don't know. But the fact is that there is effort from both the parties, India as well as US, to try and stitch up something together. And that is something that Donald Trump, as well as his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and a lot of other leaders, J.D. Vance, have mentioned time and again that India is on the verge of inking that trade deal with the US. Of course, this will not be the BIT. This will not be the full trade deal, which is expected. In fact, the first tranche of that is expected to unfold only in the fall of this year. But even some sort of an interim deal at the moment is something which should keep India out of this list of 12 honorary countries that Trump is going to write to today. But well, with Trump, you never know. So 2 letters are out. We will keep following whether more letters and more countries get slapped with additional tariffs.
Well, we'll have to wait and find out. Interesting points that you've raised over there, Karthik. Sridharan, editor international, the TV9 network, also with us on the broadcast. Before I come to you, Sri, let me quickly bring in Ambassador Vora, who's with us on the broadcast here. Ambassador, is Donald Trump, he's rekindling these economic pressures on trading partners, 2 of those nations that now been announced. What do you think? Will India feature in these list of, like Karthik pointed out, 12 honorary nations or not? Where are things moving next?
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you. I heard Mr. Malhotra. He was brilliant in what he explained. Let me just tell you, I heard Donald Trump, when he assumed, he said, "Oh, I love this word tariff. It sounds so beautiful." Now, he's weaponized trade. There's no question about it. So what is his market? I'm a development economist by training and not as good as Mr. Malhotra. But let me just say that if you are going to produce in America, you're going to make America great again. You're talking of reshoring your industry. You have a population of 340 million. Where are you going to sell the stuff that you make? Are you going to sell it to Bhutan? You're going to sell it to Nepal or to Sri Lanka? You need a market of 1.4 billion. That is India. I hope somebody knocks some sense into this fellow's head that India is your biggest market. The Chinese don't buy anything from you. Your target is China, not India. India is your best friend. India is your best market. The Atmanirbhar Bharat thing is fine. It was targeting China more than it's targeting you. I believe he's going to. I have a sneaking suspicion, an admiration for this guy, sir. He says what he means what he says. In that respect, he's very much like India's Prime Minister. He'll probably find some way, and I think even as you and I are on this show, our people are talking to each other, we'll find some kind of nice language, nice agreement saying that we have decided that this will happen and we will hold it in abeyance till we come to a final deal. When you say fall, that means effectively August or September. So we're not far away. We're already in the middle of July. And I believe that we are going to find some diplomatic language. We are pretty good at that. That we will pause this and we will reconsider it in a little while. He's not going to want to offend India. Then he is losing his biggest market, sir. And he's a dandewala. He's a businessman. He understands markets better than anybody else.
Sridharan, editor international, TV9 network. Sri, help the viewers understand here your opening comments, of course, but President Trump, he's announced these tariffs for South Korea and Japan. And what's important to note here is that the discussions and the negotiations between these 2 nations and the trips to White House and vice versa to and fro, they were quite slow, of course, due to internal elections that were taking place as well. What does that tell us about, number one, the kind of example that Donald Trump wants to set with these 2 countries and the other ones that are glued to the television screens right now? And with Indian delegation, Jaishankar, you had various union ministers making a beeline to the White House, several of those meetings taking place in Washington as well. What does that tell us about the seriousness with which India and its counterparts on the business front were looking at these trade deals?
Oh, Kabir, if you look at it, the stumbling blocks, so to say, for negotiations between US and countries like Japan and South Korea are not too different from the issues that we have with India as well. Because some of these issues are so fundamental to their economies and the well-being of the people that the governments are balking at agreeing to what Trump wants. For example, in the case of Japan, one of the things President Trump is questioning is why is it that it's so difficult for Americans to sell cars in Japanese market and it's so easy for you to sell your cars in the American market, right? And then he wants access to the American rice producers in the Japanese market. Now, these are not very easy sectors for any government to open up, especially, if we look at India, our issues with the trade negotiations with the US have been around agriculture, dairy, genetically modified crop, and all these issues. Now, India is a very, special case because we are still, a poor country in many ways. Our per capita income is way below what it should be for a country that's now becoming the 4th largest economy. So I think the government is really concerned about the implications of opening up markets two large American farmers who do mechanized farming. They have thousands of hectares that they farm versus a subsistence farmer in India or a dairy farmer in India who's probably selling 20 liters of milk every day to make a living. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. And the government of India has really put its foot down and said, this is not something that we can agree to because this fundamentally affects the prosperity or even the subsistence of some of our farmers. So like Karthik and the ambassador also mentioned, in the interim, we might see some sort of a deal where these contentious issues are set aside and we agree on a broader framework where the tariffs are agreed on till a full-blown agreement is signed. So that's possibly a face saver for both the countries because ultimately, as the ambassador also mentioned, India is a very large market. It's one of the fastest growing economies, 1.4 billion people, a middle class that is growing, consuming. So everything from, let's say, American wines to cheese to everything will need to come here. And as the Indian consumer also becomes more prosperous, they'll want to move to some of these fancier imported items, which we already see that happening in many markets in India. So I think this is not going to be solved in a hurry, especially the access to India's agriculture market or the issue of genetically modified crop. We've allowed the GM feed to come in for animal consumption, but not for human consumption. So these are issues that are going to take a little while. But I have faith in both the leaders, especially, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. They are very, very smart and savvy leaders. I think they know how to do deals. And eventually, I think by end of this year, we'll probably have some sort of a deal that works for both the countries.
All right. Well, we can hope that good sense prevails. That's one way to look at this. Karthik, Donald Trump has been saying, as you're aware, there will be no tariff if Japan or companies within your country decide to build or manufacture product within the United States. And in fact, we will do everything possible to get approvals quickly, professionally and routinely. In other words, in a matter of weeks. So you can manufacture in the United States and the tariff twisting will go away.
Well, isn't that exactly what Donald Trump has been vying for, Kabir, all this while? He wants to make America great again. He wants to get those manufacturing jobs back in the country. What he doesn't seem to perhaps appreciate at the moment is the fact that even if manufacturing were to hypothetically move to the US, it requires a huge amount of capital investment. Even if companies muscle up and make those investments, at the end of the day, given the labor laws and given the minimum wages which need to be paid to workers in the US, eventually it is not going to lead to job creation as per many economists. Rather, it's going to lead to more mechanization in manufacturing, and that is going to be even more cost imperative for companies which do decide to move to US to incur. So that is point number one. But there have been certain cases in the past also that we've seen. For example, Nissan at one point was looking at moving part of its assembly to the United States. Honda had committed a certain amount of investment into the US. Apple, for example, a homegrown US company, has already committed, if I'm not mistaken, $500 million to move some part of the manufacturing to the US. So there is a little bit of lip service that one is seeing already. The idea is perhaps to, at some point, explore the possibility of manufacturing in the US, despite the negative cost arbitrage of moving there. Perhaps companies also know it, that make these commitments right now, promise these investments right now, and 3.5 years later, whether you want to see it through or not is anybody's guess. So that is point number one. But I think Donald Trump has been vying for manufacturing to move to the US, and the fact that Japanese companies, especially automakers in Japan, as well as electronics makers from Japan, as well as South Korea, which is again a big electronics market, if they were to start pledging little sums of investments into the US, it should keep tariffs at bay for some time. Now, is that really going to now happen in the next, 24 days until August 1st? We don't know. There was a 90-day period. Deals have not been stitched in those 90 days. Will another 23 days until August 1st make sure that some of these commitments from Japan and South Korea come through is something that one would remain a little skeptical of.
You're right.
again, I want to come back to India, and the fact is that, India is also right now, if I may, a little bit precariously placed, given the fact that there is already a 10% baseline tariff, which is applicable on every country. There is a 26% tariff, which India potentially faces on account of the reciprocal tariffs, the April 2nd Liberation Day tariffs, if we are unable to go ahead even with an interim deal or a mini deal at the time being. So that takes India's tally to 36%. Add to that, let's say, a 10% BRICS tariff that President Donald Trump announced.
That's exactly what I was going to get at.
24 hours ago. We are looking at 46% tariff on India potentially without a trade deal, but with even an interim trade deal, perhaps you're still looking at a 10% baseline and a 10% BRICS tariff, which is 26%, marginally better than, 20%, marginally better than 26%, but you're still not happy with that.
Well, the ripple effect has already begun. Stocks have tumbled after Donald Trump posted these letters on social media. Ambassador, the S&P 500 dropped as much as 1% before settling to trade, roughly about 0.8% lower for the day, and other major indexes have also fallen. So the domino effect has begun, if I could use those words.
Yeah, well, that would be because in the indices that you have mentioned, Japan, South Korea, and others play a significant role. I don't know if there's been any impact on the Indian stock market. Anything has happened to the Sensex or to Nifty, I don't know whether it is. The reality, sir, to my mind, again, and I try and understand why this fellow is doing this. You've told us so brilliantly what he's doing, and then, of course, your colleagues explain how he's doing it. I try to understand why. That's my training over 52 years. I do believe that he understands he needs India. Because at the moment, there's this triangle dance that America is dancing, China, India, and the United States. India and China being equivalent in terms of population, at least. China may have a much higher per capita income. But he would not like to offend us. So politically, he would not like to offend us. He wouldn't like to see us going even closer to Russia, for example, in certain areas, or even making up with China, as some of us would like to do. So my feeling is, sir, that he will relent. He's making a noise, he's growling, he's screaming, he's yelling, but then he'll probably come around and say, all right, I'll give you some more time. Let's work even harder. Let's tell our officials that they should not go to sleep tonight and work on the contours of a deal. I am convinced we will see a deal. We're not going to have a Plaza Accords kind of thing. I was posted in the US then, 82 to 85, which truly messed up Japan because the US dollar was overvalued. And I remember, sir, on Capitol Hill, the congressmen would bring television sets made in Japan with hammers and smash them and say, we're not going to buy this stuff, etc. But that was a different era. I believe that we are going to get a deal, and we will all be very pleasantly surprised, and we'll all say, thank you, Uncle, for the deal that you have given us. I think we are heading to that, sir. We are not in a position to take him on headlong, sir. Nobody in the world is. It's America, sir. So we try and maneuver as best as we can. We have a very good relationship, despite all the little hiccups and what people scream and yell. I think that we will get our way, sir.
All right. Well, let's hope that we get our way and we get that deal. Shri, how about you put that 46% into perspective that Karthik was talking about, inclusive of that 10%, BRICS tariff that Donald Trump announced right in the morning as well. We're all waiting to see whether the tariff levels of the trade deals will be announced today. 12 or 15 is what Donald Trump had initially announced. Only 2 nations are out so far. But the 46%, can you put that percentage into perspective for the layman out there?
So there are essentially 3 countries with which, US has more or less agreed on a trade deal. One is Vietnam, the other is UK, and the third is China. So, the 46%, Karthik gave the breakup. 10 is the baseline, 26% is on the reciprocal tariff, and 10% break. Now, the point to be noted about this, Kabir, is that one doesn't really know the details of, any of the tariff. For example, even the deal which they've done with China, but US drops the tariff on China to 30%, and China drops the tariff 10% on US imports. Apart from that, we really don't know the mechanics or the details of it. And let's talk about the BRICS tariff, for example. Now, what do you mean by anti-American policies? As a country, am I not going to compete with, let's say, even US or any other country? So who defines what is anti-American and what exactly constitutes anti-American? So these are very amorphous kind of statements to make with the intention, I guess, of setting a cat among the pigeons. So you scare countries, you bring them to a negotiating table. I think beyond that, you can't actually run economies like this. This is part of Donald Trump's statecraft. That's how he runs the world as he sees it. I'm going to scare people. I'm going to get them to the table, and I'm going to say some outrageous things that they have no choice but to believe. And they're going to run helter-skelter trying to figure out what I've just said. So this is all essential, I would say, an element of Trump's foreign policy. And so I don't see many of these actually getting implemented in any practical way. Yes, baseline 10% tariff, easily done. Even a reciprocal tariff done. But softer issues, I mean, there are, after all, even within America, there are courts which are like, sitting there to decide whether, most of the things that Trump has done are under national security, right? The 232 tariffs which is imposed on certain items, they've been done under the Article 232, which, really is about protecting America's national security. And I don't see how steel, aluminium, or any of these, nails, for example, are really impacting America's national security. So I think at some point the cloud will lift. I think we'll have clarity. But right now, the US president is very clearly in a deal making mode. He wants to get the best possible deal, and he's going to say and do things that brings countries to the negotiating table in the way he wants them to come. So I think we just have to be smart, deal with the Trump administration patiently, and appeal to them also in a very rational fashion. Hopefully some of it will stick and we'll end up having a good deal. And that's the hope I think other countries have as well, Kabir.
Absolutely. This is how you tackle Donald Trump's foreign policy. Of course, the Hindi connotation that's being used here, that's Donald Trump's foreign policy, and you need to tackle that very differently. I'm also reading here, Tesla is the hardest hit stock in the S&P 500 right now. Of course, that's a lot to do with Elon Musk's party and this new Donald Trump, Musk and Trump love affair that's gone awry. We're going to wrap this up. My final question to Karthik, just like the ambassador was speaking about how Donald Trump will relent, these deadlines, they don't hold necessarily. There's a lot of elbow room to play with as well. And there's a lot of bark but no teeth when it comes to Donald Trump. And we've seen it time and again. So we are hoping for good sense to prevail. We are hoping that we're going to be able to tackle this very nicely, and we will get that deal. Final comments, Karthik, before we wrap this up.
Right, Kabir. So I think, if one were to play devil's advocate at some point, one would assume that perhaps the tariffs were targeted singularly towards China, partly towards Russia, and India happens to be collateral damage. And that is perhaps the initial impact of the April 2nd Liberation Day tariffs, which we've already seen, weigh in a little bit on our stock markets, overall on growth projections, and on what some refer to as imported inflation, which is yet to come to the banks of India. So that is one part of it. But if you were to look at it from the other side of the coin, I think it's also fair to assume that China was among the first countries for Donald Trump to go ahead and make a trade deal with. So if China has been dealt with one would say arguably kinder gloves, then India definitely happens to be in a better position to get away with a lighter sort of tariff deal with the US. But again, I think a lot will emerge over the next few hours, Kabir, as more letters are released on Donald Trump's Truth Social platform. There are just 2 right now. I think when we see the balance 10, a total of 12 letters to be released, we will perhaps be able to comment a little more confidently on which side Donald Trump's thinking, at least for today, seems to be.
Well, all right, we'll leave it there. Karthik, many thanks for joining us here. Ambassador Vora, always a pleasure to have you with us, and Sri, lovely to be speaking to you on this aspect. 2 nations, we've received those letters. A dramatic move by US President Donald Trump, who's just today announced 25% tariff on goods from Japan and South Korea effective August 1st. He'd earlier announced 12 to 15 nations, all the other nations still not out, but letters to the leaders of both these nations that are out, and he's also warned an extra 25% tariff if retaliatory tariffs come the United States his way. What's going to happen with India? People were talking about that mini trade deal of both these leaders, the bonhomie between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Trump. All of that needs to be seen as well. The next 24 hours are going to be very crucial. We're going to slip into a quick commercial breather here. Top developments continue right here on News 9, right on the other side.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
It's never easy to choose a new path, stand out in the crowd, to have your own new identity. The journey to self-reliance begins when you're fully prepared. Tata Motors Commercial Vehicles presents the new Ace Pro, now in bi-fuel, EV and petrol variants. So get ready to say it loud. Ace Pro, ab meri bari.
Delivery boy has picked your order.
We know you are hungry. The message notification said it would take 30 minutes.
We can't just rely on a message.
Didn't you sell some shares yesterday?
Yes. So
did you check them?
I got a message.
You can't just rely on one message. If you make any transactions in the stock market, cross-check the SMS or email you receive from the stock exchange with your Demat account as well as bank statement.
Beta, when one's hungry, the brain doesn't function properly.
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
तेरे लिए मंगाओ? मेरे नए म्यूजिक गॉगल्स मंगाओ क्या?
ये नई गाड़ी कप होल्डर है, कुकी भी रख सकते हैं, म्यूजिक भी।
सेविंग्स की विद्या तो फिर तुझसे सीखे।
कुछ बड़ा बनाना है तो पहले बचाओ। फेडरल बैंक से रिश्ता बनाओ।
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. At the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India would redefine the BRICS grouping under its upcoming chairmanship. And in his address, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Under India's BRICS chairmanship, we will define BRICS in a new form. BRICS would mean building resilience and innovation for cooperation and sustainability. In the coming year, under India's BRICS chairmanship, we will continue close cooperation on all the subjects, essentially redefining the full form of BRICS as we know it." Prime Minister Modi also emphasized that India will carry forward the people-centric global South-first approach it adopted during its G20 presidency. He said BRICS must become a platform that champions the voices of developing nations and helps build a multipolar and inclusive world order. Earlier in the day, the Prime Minister joined fellow BRICS leaders, partners and outreach invitees for the traditional family photo, symbolizing unity and collaboration amongst emerging powers. And on this issue of peace and security, he referred to the April 2025 Pahalgam terror attack, calling it not just an attack on India, but an assault on all humanity. He urged the BRICS nations to take strong and united action against terrorism, insisting there must be zero tolerance and no double standards, something that was echoed by India at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which India refused to sign because it failed to mention the word terrorism as well. And as India prepares to assume the BRICS chairmanship in 2026, the tone that was set in Rio marks a significant shift towards reform-driven, inclusive multilateralism, with New Delhi expected to steer the bloc with a human-first, development-focused agenda. Moving on, and bang in the middle of the language controversy that we've been seeing, Marathi versus Hindi, a shocking video that went viral from Mumbai's Andheri area, raising serious questions about law and order, VIP culture and political accountability. In the video that you're seeing, Rahil Sheikh, son of MNS office bearer Javed Sheikh, is seen drunk, half naked, hurling abuses, this on a public road. According to eyewitnesses, Rahil rammed his car into the vehicle of social media influencer Rajshri More late Sunday night, and when confronted, he allegedly abused and threatened her in full public view. He did later apologize. At least some of those videos show him holding his ears, apologizing, saying, "Tai Sorry. And the incident captured on camera has now gone viral across various platforms, needless to say. The world and age of artificial intelligence and social media, sparking outrage over the drunk driving, the abuse of women and the security of women, and political entitlement. Now, what's most important is that even though political reactions come out, and we're of course going to tell you about it, the MNS has come out distancing itself from the incident. It said that, of course, Rahil Sheikh is an office bearer, but we've got nothing to do with this incident. Rahil Sheikh is our man. His son is not part of the MNS.
3 लोग रोड से चल रहे थे, उसने उनके ऊपर भी गाड़ी डाली एंड आफ्टर दैट वो लोग एकदम से साइड में हटके अपने आप को बचा लिया. और जब मैंने ये बोल रही हूँ कि तुझे पता है तूने 3 लोगों को मारने की कोशिश की है और तूने मेरी गाड़ी को मारा है, तब वो मुझे बोलता है कि तुझे पता है मैं कौन हूँ, मेरा बाप कौन है, मैं मनसे से हूँ. उसने अपना नाम बताना जरूरी नहीं समझा. उसने ये बोला कि मैं मनसे से हूं और तुझे पता है मेरा बाप कौन है. पुलिस वालों ने बहुत अच्छे से सपोर्ट किया. उन्होंने उसको, जब वो मुझे गालियां दे रहा था, इतनी गंदी गालियां दे रहा था जो मैं अभी यहाँ पे बोल भी नहीं सकती, उसको बहुत ज्यादा चर्बी थी और न जाने वो किस चीज की थी. अब वो घर में खाना खाता है या ये चर्बी खाता था मुझे नहीं पता, बट जब वो मुझे पुलिस वालों के सामने गालियां दे रहा था, वो पुलिस वालों के सामने मुझे मारने के लिए भी आया. मुझे तो 100% यही लगता है, जब एक बार मेरी गाड़ी को मारा गया, ठीक है, उसके बाद वो साइड से निकल सकता था. दोबारा भी मुझे क्यों मारा गया इस तरीके से. और वो गाड़ी मेरी गाड़ी बहुत फेमस है. मैं आपको बताऊं, मैं काम करती हूँ, बहुत मेहनत से काम करती हूँ, बट हाँ, मैं अपने काम में मेरा नाम बहुत अच्छा है. मेरी गाड़ी और मेरे गाड़ी का नंबर और मेरा ये फेस लोग जानते हैं. तो मेरी ही गाड़ी को कैसे टारगेट किया गया और अंदर मनसे का ही आदमी कैसे निकला. अगर चलो ठीक है, उससे गलती होती तो बंदा ये बोलता कि सॉरी मुझसे गलती हुई. वो ये नहीं बोलता तुझे पता है मैं कौन हूं, मेरा बाप मनसे का उपाध्यक्ष है. एंड हाँ, तू एक काम कर, राज ठाकरे के घर जा और तेरा जो भी नुकसान हुआ है जाके वहां से लेके आ. वो खुद क्यों नहीं दे रहा था, वो खुद क्यों नहीं बात कर रहा था.
राजश्री मोरे नाम की एक महिला का वीडियो फिलहाल वायरल हुआ है. उस वीडियो में स्पष्ट दिख रहा है कि मनसे के एक नेता का बेटे ने, उस बेटे ने इस महिला को न सिर्फ गाली दी, उसकी गाड़ी तोड़ी, उसकी गाड़ी के साथ टक्कर मारी और उसके साथ लगातार बदतमीजी कर रहा है. ये जो लड़का है, ये मनसे के कोई उपाध्यक्ष हैं, जावेद शेख, उनका सुपुत्र है. यह राहिल या साहिल नाम का जो लड़का है, यह नशे में धुत है. एक ऐसा मुसलमान है जो शराब पी के घूम रहा है. उसका शराब पी के उसने गाड़ी चलाई और जाकर गाड़ी ठोक दी. और जब इस महिला ने विरोध किया तो इस महिला को गाली दी और उसके बाद बार बार अपने बाप के पोजीशन को फ्लॉन्ट कर रहा है. इससे 2 बातें स्पष्ट होती हैं कि मनसे वाले मराठी भाषा के नाम पर जिस तरीके से उत्पात मचा रहे हैं, ये दरअसल गुंडागर्दी है. इनको न तो मराठी भाषा से कोई लेना देना, न मराठी समाज के मान सम्मान से लेना देना. अगर मराठी भाषकों के मान सम्मान से लेना देना होता तो राजश्री मोरे को कोई गाली नहीं देता. कोई मनसे वाला मनसे का कह करके उसको गाली नहीं देता. दूसरी बात, ये जो मनसे के उपाध्यक्ष जावेद शेख के बेटे कह रहे हैं, उनको देख करके हमें समझ में आ रहा है कि बार बार मनसे वाले हिंदुओं पर ही हमले करते हैं. और हमने बार बार सवाल उठाया कि अगर इतनी ताकत है, इतना गट्स है, इतना जोश है तुम में, इतना करेज है या साहस है, तो जरा भिंडी बाजार में जाके किसी मुसलमान को थप्पड़ मार के दिखाओ. उसको बोलो कि तुम उर्दू में बात मत करो, मराठी में बात करो. अब समझ में आ रहा है कि मनसे के जो मुस्लिम नेता हैं, उनके दबाव में आकर के राज ठाकरे के गुंडे हिंदुओं के ऊपर सरेआम हमले कर रहे हैं.
किसी भी व्यक्ति को कोई भी सत्ता या कोई भी पावर मिलता है लोकतंत्र में, तो वो लोगों के वजह से मिलता है और लोगों के लिए मिलता है. तो ऐसी नकारात्मकता तभी आती है जब नेता कहता है कि मैं देख लूंगा. तो ये संस्कार है. और ये महाराष्ट्र जैसे राज्यों में इस तरह की बातें अगर होती है तो इसके बारे में सोचना चाहिए कि हम खुले मन से क्या बात करते हैं, उसका असर जमीन पर क्या होता है और आम आदमी को कैसा भुगतना पड़ता है. एक महिला से बात करने की तमीज नहीं है, केवल इसलिए कि बहुत बड़ा आंदोलन हो गया, नेता ने बहुत अच्छा भाषण दे दिया, तो क्या आपको कानून व्यवस्था के अधिकार आपके हाथ में आ गए? और मेरा सवाल उन पुलिसकर्मियों से भी है कि उन्होंने उसका कॉलर पकड़ के, कॉलर तो आधा नंगा ही था, उसकी पैंट पकड़ के उसको जेल में ठूसने के बजाय वो उसको क्या समझा रहे थे? कानून के ऊपर कोई है नहीं लोकतंत्र में। तो ये उस पक्ष की संस्कृति और नेता क्या कहता है मंच से, उसका क्या असर होता है, ये भी नेताओं को सोचने की बात है।
And this entire incident coming to light amidst a political war of words that's already been going on over language, regional pride in election politics, with BJP MP Nishikant Dubey now taking a direct swipe at MNS chief Raj Thackeray. Dubey dared Raj Thackeray to visit Bihar in Uttar Pradesh, saying he would be beaten up if he entered the Hindi heartland. And Nishikant Dubey accused the Thackeray family of playing cheap politics over the Marathi language in the run-up to the BMC elections. Listen in to what Nishikant Dubey had to say.
हमारे पैसे पर पल रहे हो, तुम कौन सा टैक्स देते हो, कौन सी इंडस्ट्री है तुम्हारे पास? माइंस हमारे पास है, झारखंड के पास है, छत्तीसगढ़ के पास है, मध्य प्रदेश के पास है, उड़ीसा के पास है। आपके पास कौन सी माइंस है? रिफाइनरी यदि रिलायंस ने बैठाई है, एसआर ने रिफाइनरी बैठाई, तो वो गुजरात में रिफाइनरी बैठाई है। सारी इंडस्ट्री जो है, सेमीकंडक्टर की भी इंडस्ट्री है, तो गुजरात में आ रही है। आप जो है लाटसाही कर रहे हो और ऊपर से जो है आप हमारा दोहन करके, शोषण करके टैक्स पेयर करते हो। और यदि आप में ज्यादा हिम्मत है तो आप हिंदी भाषी को मारते हो तो उर्दू भाषी को भी मारो, तमिलियन को भी मारो, आप जो है तेलुगु वाले को भी मारो। आप जो इस तरह की घटिया हरकत कर रहे हो, और मैंने हमेशा कहा है कि जब अपने घर में हो, महाराष्ट्र में हो, यदि बहुत बड़े बॉस हो तो चलो बिहार, चलो उत्तर प्रदेश, चलो तमिलनाडु, तुमको पटक पटक के मारेंगे। ये एनार्की जो है नहीं चलेगी। हम मराठी का सम्मान करते हैं, मराठी एक आदरणीय भाषा है, और हम छत्रपति साहू जी महाराज, छत्रपति शिवाजी जी महाराज, पेशवा, सबका जो है तात्या टोपे से लेके सभी का हम सम्मान करते हैं। उन सबों ने, तिलक हो चाहे लाजपत राय हो, सभी ने जो है आजादी के आंदोलन में, गोपाल कृष्ण गोखले हो, सबसे बड़ा योगदान दिया है। हम तो सभी मराठी स्वतंत्रता सेनानियों का सम्मान करते हैं। महाराष्ट्र के स्वतंत्रता में, हमारी भारत की स्वतंत्रता में बहुत बड़ा योगदान है। लेकिन आज जो वोट बैंक की पॉलिटिक्स, बीएमसी का चुनाव होने वाला है, और ये उद्धव ठाकरे और राज ठाकरे जो कर रहा है, इससे घटिया कोई काम नहीं हो सकता है, और हम इसका प्रतिकार करते हैं। और यदि उनमें हिम्मत है, जो मैंने आपको कहा है, यदि उनमें हिम्मत है तो बगल में जो है माहिम इलाके में चले जाएं और माहिम की दरगाह के सामने जो है किसी हिंदी भाषी और उर्दू भाषी को पीट कर दिखा दें, तो मैं मानूंगा कि वो सचमुच जो है बाला साहब ठाकरे जी के जो है वारिस हैं और बाला साहब ठाकरे जी के सिद्धांतों पर चल रहे हैं।
Interesting aspects of how politics is now shaping up around this language row. But firing back at Nishikant Dubey, you had Shiv Sena UBT's a member of parliament, Priyanka Chaturvedi, who questioned who made Dubey the decision maker for other parties, calling his statement inappropriate. And you had Shiv Sena's UBT's Aditya Thackeray, Uddhav Thackeray's son, lashing out, calling the BJP stand anti-Maharashtra.
जो भाजपा का सांसद है वो भाजपा की मानसिकता है, उत्तर भारत ऐसे नहीं है। महाराष्ट्र में बहुत सारे उत्तर भारतीय, दक्षिण भारतीय, सारे पूरे देश से लोग आते हैं, सपना लेके आते हैं। भाजपा का ये प्लेबुक है, तोड़ो फोड़ो राज करो। अगर आप देखें तो हमारी जो लड़ाई थी वो सरकार के खिलाफ थी, किसी भाषा के खिलाफ नहीं थी। हमारी जो लड़ाई थी वो शक्ति के खिलाफ थी, किसी भाषा के खिलाफ नहीं थी। हमारी जो लड़ाई थी वो भाजपा की शक्ति, जो हिंदी की शक्ति थी, उसके खिलाफ थी, किसी भाषा के खिलाफ नहीं। और यही बात मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि निशिकांत दुबे ये उत्तर भारत का प्रतीक नहीं है। बहुत सारे लोग हैं, जैसे हमारे यहाँ आनंद दुबे है, वो तो शिवसैनिक है, वो तो काम करते हैं। तो यही बात मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि ऐसे जो लोग हैं जो आग लगाना चाहते हैं, उनकी तरफ आप भी उनको अगर स्पेस ना दे तो इनकी कोई पॉलिटिक्स चलेगी।
Well, Maharashtra's Congress chief spokesperson Atul Londe Patil slammed Dubey's remarks, calling him foolish and irresponsible. Listen in to what the Congress is now coming and bringing to the table.
बेवकूफ इंसान है। यह विवाद भाषा का नहीं है। यह विवाद बाल मानस शास्त्र के अनुसार, शिक्षाविदों के अनुसार, पहली से चौथी कक्षा में मातृभाषा को छोड़कर दूसरी भाषा, दो भाषा देना चाहिए, नहीं देना चाहिए, इसका है। अगर मराठी, तमिल, मलयालम उनके प्रदेशों को छोड़कर किसी दूसरे प्रदेश में उनकी मातृभाषा के साथ अगर जोड़ दिया जाए पहली से चौथी कक्षा तक, तो वो भाषाई कंफ्यूजन हो सकता है बच्चे को। विवाद इस बात का है सभी भाषा का सम्मान कांग्रेस करती है, लेकिन इस तरह से बाल मानस शास्त्र के खिलाफ जाकर बच्चों को कंफ्यूज करने के खिलाफ भी कांग्रेस है, चाहे वो कोई भी प्रदेश हो भारत का और कोई भी भाषा हो। मातृभाषा पहली से चौथी कक्षा में उसको प्राथमिकता देनी चाहिए।
Even the RSS Akhil Bharatiya Prachar Pramukh Sunil Ambekar, he weighed in on the language row, saying that the Sangh has always believed that all the languages of India are national languages.
संघ की मतलब बहुत पहले से ये भूमिका है कि भारत की सभी भाषा राष्ट्रीय भाषा है और अपने अपने जगहों पर लोग अपनी अपनी भाषा में और बातें करते हैं। प्राथमिक शिक्षा उसी में लेना चाहिए, ये आग्रह भी सबका लगा हुआ है। तो मुझे लगता है ये बात तो पहले से स्थापित है।
Well, Voucher News 9 to bring you all the latest details vis-a-vis this language row. But shifting our focus here, major update on the vehicle regulations in Delhi that could be coming soon. The Commission for Air Quality Management, the CAQM, is expected to issue new orders within the next 3 days, but not before a crucial round of meetings. And this week, the CAQM and its officials are set to hold discussions with the Delhi government, the Petrol Pump Dealers Association and other relevant departments. The focus is going to be a new directive aimed at pollution control. However, opposition from Petrol Dealers Association continues, raising the potential for disagreement. And so far, no formal decision has taken place. But CAQM has received a letter from the Delhi government regarding its concerns, and as of now, the old CAQM order remains in effect. It's also important to note CAQM has no legal authority to seize vehicles. In line with this, the Delhi government has temporarily halted vehicle seizures, and that ban remains in place. Multiple key meetings are scheduled this coming week, and a final decision on the new policy is likely to emerge soon. But for now, no immediate change in enforcement, and the current rules continue to apply in Delhi. Shifting our focus to Bihar, because when blind belief replaces humanity, it isn't just the victims who suffer, it's our collective conscience that burns. A horrifying incident from Bihar's Purnia district has left the nation shaken. 5 members of a family were brutally beaten, set ablaze by villagers, all over suspicions of witchcraft. The victims were blamed for a string of recent illnesses and deaths in the Tetgama village in Purnia, including that of a local man's son who had been undergoing traditional healing just days before. And the community, gripped by fear and superstition, decided to take matters into their own hands with fatal consequences. Pankaj Kumar Sharma, the SDPO, Sadar Purnia, said that killings were linked to a child's death in the village. These arrests have been made so far for provoking the mob. Listen in to what the SDPO had to say.
नाम का एक लड़का है जिससे 16 वर्ष की आयु होगी, उनके द्वारा बताया गया कि उरांव लोग ही, मतलब ये मैक्सिमम पॉपुलेशन वहाँ आदिवासी उरांव की ही है, उन लोगों ने जादू टोना कह सकते हैं या डाइन के नाम पर जो उनके परिवार के 5 लोगों की हत्या कर दिया। ठीक है, पुणे पुलिस तत्काल पहुंची है और सामने 5 बड़ी रिकवर हो गई है, चली हुई थी गिरफ्तारी भी 3 की। FIR 4 नेम जिन्होंने बोला था शुरू में, 4 में से 3 की गिरफ्तारी हो गई है, बाकी अज्ञात है जो अनुसंधान में आते चले जाए। ऐसे पूरे गांव के लोग इसमें शामिल थे, इनकी 3 टोला थी, सारे टोला के लोग इसमें थे, मैक्सिमम इसमें आदिवासी उरांव लोग।
Gruesome details of mob justice that have now come to light, burnt, beaten up, set ablaze and then thrown into the river. And the larger question remains, how can such barbarity still find space in our society? In an age of science and reason, are we still so deeply entangled in superstition that superstition ends up justifying murder? More details to come out in this case soon. Voucher News 9 to bring you all the latest. Another shocking incident that has come to light from Ambernath in Thane district, where 3 students suddenly fell out of a speeding school van. The entire episode was captured on CCTV camera. Take a look at that. We've had to pause that CCTV footage where you can see the back door of this van opening up and the 3 children falling down. The incident occurred on a highway in Ambernath where a school van was speeding and its rear door suddenly flung open, causing 3 students to fall onto the road. Could have been a case of clamping and clobbering these students inside a small van to make sure as many can fit inside one particular sortie of this van. Shockingly, the van continued driving without even stopping, indicating that the driver was clearly unaware of the mishap. God knows how many children were exactly seated inside this van as well. And the CCTV footage clearly shows bystanders rushing to help the children after the fall. 2 students sustained minor injuries, whilst one suffered a serious head injury as well. And the injured students were immediately admitted to a private hospital in Ambernath, and after receiving first aid, they were discharged. Fortunately, nothing serious that came to be. But again highlights serious discrepancies in the security of travel to and fro from school for our young ones out there. Controversy is also brewing ahead of the July 11th release of the film Udaipur Files. Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind has knocked on the doors of the Delhi High Court demanding a ban on the film based on Kanhaiya Lal's brutal 2022 murder. And the trailer that's already out on YouTube lifts Nupur Sharma's controversial remarks verbatim, the very remarks that had triggered nationwide outrage. And the petition warns, this isn't just a film, it's a powder keg. The PIL states that the trailer is laced with dialogues that had already caused communal unrest, and if allowed to screen, could once again rip open old wounds. The trailer's language, the visuals, the plot, everything reeks of hate, says the Jamiat. The plea also argues that this is a deliberate attempt to stoke communal sentiment, vilify an entire community, and violate their right to live with dignity. Amidst all this, let's not forget it's been almost 3 years since Kanhaiya Lal was brutally murdered, and justice still awaits in that case. So therefore, Files' release now coming under the lens. The Delhi High Court, its doors have been knocked on. The Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind has filed its petition. The matter is going to be taken up soon. The dates of this item, they've not been specified so far at this point in time. Meanwhile, the Kerala government has approached the High Court seeking 9,531 crore rupees in compensation from global shipping giant MSC over the MSC Elsa 3 shipwreck that triggered an environmental crisis off the state's coast. Now, the petition holds MSC Shipping responsible for ecological, environmental and economic damage caused by the sinking of the cargo vessel, which went down nearly 25 kilometers southwest of Alappuzha in Kerala. The MSC Elsa 3, en route from Viranium to Kochi, was carrying diesel, bunker oil, calcium carbide, one of those toxic materials, and plastic pellets, hazardous materials that leaked into the Arabian Sea following the wreck. And experts warn the spill poses a major threat to marine life, water quality and livelihoods of coastal fishing communities in the region. The state government of Kerala has demanded accountability from the shipping company and is urging immediate action to contain the pollution and recover those damages. Your monsoon tracker coming your way, but heavy rains wreaking havoc in Rajasthan's Jhunjhunu district as well. We've been talking about Mandi, we've been talking about the northern states of Uttarakhand, but in Jhunjhunu, in Udaipur region, 86 millimeters of rainfall has been recorded over the last 24 hours. Overnight intense downpours have caused a sudden rise in the water level in the Bhagwili river. And the force of the river's current washed away a key road connecting the area national highway to that particular area in Udaipur National Highway 52 on your screen. Shockingly, the road had been built just 6 months ago and at a cost of several crore rupees. Locals say this was the only direct route linking their villages to the highway, and they had long relied on it. The collapse has now not only disrupted daily life but also raised serious questions about construction quality and accountability as well. Jhunjhunu, Rajasthan, 86 millimeter rainfall in a small area within less than 24 hours. And of course, the spate of the river flowing high, breaching the banks, hurting this national highway, which was built just 6 months ago at a cost of several crore rupees. But on the other hand, torrential rains have brought much needed relief to Kashmir on Monday, ending that intense heat wave. But needless to say, with intense rainfall comes chaos. Srinagar and several other parts of the valley were washed and lashed with heavy showers, flooding roads and triggering traffic snarls across the city. Downtown Srinagar was among the worst hit areas, and strong winds that preceded the rains uprooted trees and electric poles, plunging many areas into darkness. Whilst properties suffered damage, officials confirmed there were no casualties reported so far. Some top global developments that are coming your way next. The Iranian president has said that Israel attempted to assassinate him, we're talking about Pezeshkian himself, by bombarding an area in which he was holding a meeting. Masoud Pezeshkian told the US media personality Tucker Carlson in a response to a question on whether he believed Israel had tried to kill him. And he said, responding to that question, they did try, yes, they acted accordingly, but they failed. Now, Tucker Carlson's interview is one of the first interviews the Iranian president has given with Western media since the 12-day war fought between Israel and Iran last month. And he clarified, and I quote again, "It was not the United States that was behind the attempt on my life, it was Israel. I was in a meeting that tried to bombard the area in which we were holding that meeting." Now, Donald Trump has already said that he blocked the Israelis from trying to assassinate the 86-year-old Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who remained in hiding for nearly 3 weeks. A move to kill Pezeshkian, elected just last summer, would be a qualitatively different step by Israel and underline the extent to which Israel was not seeking just to weaken Iran's military leadership and cadre of nuclear scientists that we've been seeing in those attacks, but to destroy the very political leadership as well. And at times during the 12-day war, Donald Trump spoke in favor of the regime change, but seemed to back off as the campaign persisted. He now talks in terms of securing a permanent deal with Iran, but the detail of what the United States is willing to offer Iran, well, that's pretty light at the moment. Meanwhile, a high-profile political death that has rocked Russia just hours after a major shakeup in the Kremlin, this has now come to light. Former Russian Transport Minister Roman Stovo has been found dead in the Moscow region. This is a suburb on the outskirts of Moscow, and this happened shortly after President Vladimir Putin dismissed him from office. According to Russian media reports and official statements, Starovoyt is believed to have died by suicide, having shot himself. He was found inside a car. Russia's investigative committee confirmed that he was found dead with a gunshot wound in his own personal car. The 52-year-old sudden dismissal came amid ongoing chaos at Russian airports with widespread operational breakdowns across the transport sector, and the Kremlin has yet to issue a formal statement on the incident, but the case is being investigated further by the Russian authorities. Moving on, tensions erupted in Nairobi yet again just on Monday as police clashed with the protesters marking the 35th anniversary of the historic Sabha Sabha pro-democracy rallies. Security forces used tear gas and water cannons to disrupt the crowds. Here's a complete report of what really transpired on the streets of Nairobi.
Tension gripped Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on Monday as police fired tear gas and water cannon to disperse hundreds of protesters. A Reuters reporter witnessed police open fire on a crowd of advancing protesters. One man was subsequently seen lying motionless on the road with a bloody wound. A police spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The clashes marked the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies known as Sabha Sabha, Swahili for 7-7, commemorating July 7, 1990, that called for a shift to multi-party democracy. Authorities locked down major roads and restricted vehicle traffic, leaving normally bustling streets deserted except for determined demonstrators on foot. Most schools and at least one shopping mall remained closed in anticipation of unrest. This year's rally follows a wave of youth-led protests in June, which began over tax hikes, but quickly widened to include anger over corruption, police violence, and the mysterious disappearances of government critics. Fatma Luyundi, one of the demonstrators, says many families are still searching for loved ones.
Going back home is not going to help us. Our children are being abducted and killed. Parents are looking for their children, but they cannot locate them.
Our party.
Kenya's interior minister said the government was committed to protecting life and property.
It was riots, chaos, and anarchy.
Last month, Kipchumba Murkomen described the protests as, quote, terrorism disguised as dissent.
We are peaceful! We are peaceful!
The recent death of teacher and blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody has fueled public anger. Prosecutors approved murder charges against 6 people, including 3 police officers, over Ojwang's death. All 6 suspects pleaded not guilty. The government-funded Kenya National Commission on Human Rights reported 19 deaths nationwide during demonstrations on June 25th.
And that's all the time we have for you in this edition of News at 10. A quick commercial breather, top developments right on the other side.
is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
मेरा नया कुकी होल्डर कप एक तेरे लिए मंगाऊं? नहीं। मेरा नया क्लाइमेट कंट्रोल, मेरे नए म्यूजिक गॉगल्स मंगाओ क्या? मेरा नया रेन